Hello and welcome to Forging a Minecraft Mod lecture number 1, getting started. So welcome to the course, this second part of the courses, so the Minecraft modding one. We have passed the 2 courses about Java, if you follow along there. But anyways, welcome, and what do you need to take this course and the following courses? Well, I mentioned Java, so you need to know Java, basic Java, and object-oriented programming in Java. So if you don't know those things, it's going to be tricky to follow along, so I highly suggest that you learn those things first. But like I said, there are courses about those as well. But if you know that, it's totally fine to just stick along, because then you have all the things you need. You don't need to know anything about how you make a mod. We're going to start from the very basics. So some more practical information about the course. In the end there will be some examinations. It's basically an assignment that you can do, and if you finish that assignment you pass the course. If something went wrong with your assignment, you wrote it wrong, then I'm going to tell you that and you can do it again, so you can't fail the course, you can just resend it. And in the end of each lecture we also have something called the questions and exercises document, which is basically a small document of a few pages which you can do. We have questions that you can answer to see if you have understood what the current lecture is all about, and there will be answers in the end of the document as well. And then the exercises are for you to practice what we've learned, and then you can see if you made it properly. So there will be a possible solution in the end of the document as well. But to the exercises there are a lot of correct solutions. So that was some practical information. Let's get going to what is modding. I'll show you some information on the screen in a bit. It's just a boring blank screen at the moment. So when you mod a when you make a Minecraft mod, well, there's no official support for it. So what we'll have to do is go into the Minecraft code and change the source. So we have to program a mod. So when you make a mod, you program it. It's nothing else. You just don't really drag things along and do it like that. You need to code it yourself, like if you would make a game. But of course, since we're modding, most of the core functionalities are still there. Of course, we might want to add some textures and things like that, so we will do that as well. But the core part is coding, and therefore you need to know, well, Java, like I said. So to get this started, we need a few different software. So let's see what we can use. So here we have Eclipse. So Eclipse, I'm going to use Eclipse to make the mod, well, write the code in and compile it all. But of course you can use something else. And you just go to eclipse.org/downloads, and then you can download it from here. If you need any, it's very easy to install. Well, basically what you do is download the zip file, extract it to a folder, and then run the .exe file inside it. But if you need any extra help, you can check out the install guide here. So that's just to code in. You can use anything you want, really. You can use normal Notepad, not really suggested, but you can. So that's the first part. But how do we get this source from Minecraft? Of course we could try, it wouldn't work. We could take the Minecraft file and put it in the text editor and expect something to work. We would get something in the text editor, but it wouldn't be readable at all. It wouldn't be editable at all either. So what we will have to do is decompile it. So we will work backwards. Well, usually when you have a code, you compile it to get a program, but we want to do that backwards, and you can do that yourself. But well, usually you go and use something that already exists. So we're going to use modcoderpack MCP. That's going to decompile it for us and do a few other things to make it easier to use. So it's going to name things properly. It's going to allow us to recompile it properly. It's going to give us some things finished already that we don't have to do, so we don't have to set it up everything. I'll show you in a bit. So that's the first thing. The next part we want is FML and Forge. So FML is Forge Mod Loader, and what that does is to load our mod properly, so we can just well, have a .zip file, a .jar file of a mod, and that can load it into Minecraft right away. So it's going to be a lot easier by having a mod loader of some sort. It increases compatibility a lot. But finally, we also want Forge, because, well, Forge will give us more compatibility by giving us access to a lot of stuff without actually having to modify any Minecraft code itself. So I'm going to use this version, 9.10.0.780. As you can see, that's the latest Forge version, and it's for Minecraft 1.6.2, and that's, like I said, that's the latest one, well, at the moment of this recording, because this will obviously be saved to YouTube as well, if that's where you're watching it at the moment. So what do we want here? We have a few different things. We have source, we have universal, we have installer, we have Java doc, and we have changelog. So the source is when we're modding, so that's the one we will need. Universal is if you want to install it for playing. Installer is if you want to, well, install it for playing, then you can just use an installer instead of having to install it manually. And then we have some JavaDoc, that's some documentation, and finally the changelog. So what you want to download here is the source. And if we go and take a look here, I have downloaded that and extracted it. So what you get is a zip file, you extract it, and then you can go into here, and what we will find is something that looks like this. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, we have a alright, yeah, I get the comment. Yeah, 7.8.1 was actually just updated a few minutes ago, but, well, I loaded this page, the Minecraft Forge page, well, a few minutes ago, so therefore it's not there. But I'm going to use that one because that's the one I have prepared, so I don't need to download any new files. You can use 7.8.1 if you want to, or whichever version is the latest one at the very moment. So when we extract that, in this case 7.8.0, because otherwise I would have to download something else, and you would have to wait to see, well, take a look while I'm downloading files, which is very dull. But what we can find here is 3 install files. Depending on your system, you will want to run any of those. So if you're on Windows, you can just do the CMD here. If SH here is good for your system, then you can run that. You can actually also run the Python file here, but it's recommended to run any of the other ones. So I'm in Windows, so I would just run this one, and that's going to install everything for you. It's not just going to install Forge, it's going to install Forge, FML, and MCP, so it installs all those 3 things. So when that's done, what we will have, if we go back here, is this version. So as you can see, it's the exact same thing apart from this MCP folder, and that's the one we want. Inside here we have a lot of different files here. We can decompile, we can recompile, re-obfuscate, start the client, start the server. So there are a lot of things here, and maybe more importantly, we have the source. So here we can find the source, the Minecraft Forge source, the Minecraft source. Here we can find, here we have all the source of Minecraft. So that's awesome. But I'm not going to take a look on here. What I want to do is go back here and check out Eclipse. So you just open it here and run it. And when you do so, I'm actually having a bit of an older version. I haven't updated yet, but it's the same thing. And what you get is an option here where you want to have your workspace. So we have an option here. We can browse if we want to, but what I want to do is I want to read something called here Summer Courses, Course 3, Lecture 1, Steve's Example. So what's that, you might wonder? Well, if we take a look here, I have the exact same thing that we earlier. If I go back here, let's go back to the MCP folder here. So these are the exact same things. So what I said was the MCP folder is the one we need. That's the only thing we need. So what I've done is just rename that to Steve's Example, because well, that seems to make sense if I want to make a mod that is called Steve's example. So just take the MCP folder, rename it if you want to, and put it where you want it. I put it here together with all the files from my, well, for the courses. And then what I just want to do is to find that and have the Eclipse folder here. So as you can see, there's actually an Eclipse folder already, and what that will do is, well, it's basically a prepared project for you. So if you select that Eclipse folder, if you're using Eclipse, then a lot of things have been prepared for you already. If you're not using Eclipse, then you will have to set that up yourself. Okay, so run Eclipse, select the Eclipse folder inside your MCP folder. This MCP folder, how do we get it? Well, we got it by running the install script for Minecraft Forge. It takes a while for that to run, but it's going to download everything you need and install it and just give you that MCP file, and that's what we want. Okay, so I've already opened it here, so Eclipse takes a few seconds to start, but this is Eclipse for you. So we have a few different things here. This big area in the middle is where we type our code. Here we have a package explorer, so there we can see all our files that we do have. So what do we want to do now? Well, what we could do is just go up to this button up here. It's a green circle with a white arrow in. So what do we want to do here? Well, if I click the black arrow next to it, I can choose to run the client or run the server. Why do we have these options? Well, like I said, if we open the already existing Eclipse project in that Eclipse folder, we'll have some things set up already, which means that it already knows how to run the client or how to run the server. And now I started that, and as you can see, we'll get a lot of text here. It's setting everything up like that. One thing that we can also do is just click the button itself, then it's going to run the latest thing we ran. And as we can see, I'm just starting up Minecraft 1.6.2 here. And there you go. So this version here, it's not going to contain a mod or anything. We haven't created the actual mod yet, but it's going to have 1.6.2 with MCP, with Forge, and of course FML as well. So there we go, 3 mods loaded, as we can see there. Click on mods and we will see Minecraft Coder Pack, Force Mod Loader, and Minecraft Forge, like that. Right, hit done and quit the game. We're not going to do anything there just yet. Okay, so how do we make a mod? Well, first of all, we might want to open source here, because there's the source, and oh, that's a lot of things. So what do we do here? Well, what we can do is go into, where's the arrow? There you go. And go to package presentation. I don't know if you can see it properly. Package presentation, and go to the other option here. So at the moment it's flat, but that's not what we want. Boom! It's much shorter. How does this work? Well, here we have the package net, and inside net we have Minecraft and Minecraft Forge. Inside Minecraft we have block client, blah blah blah, and so on. Well, in Minecraft Forge we have a few other ones. So instead of list all the packages, we just list the top packages, and then we can open them and check the sub packages and so on. Right, so let's create a mod, shall we? So first of all, I want to create a package for it, somewhere to put it. So I'm just going to go here, new, and then package. And I'm just going to call that example. So I'm going to have a package called example, and it's going to be here. So this is where I'm going to put all the code for the mod. If you want to, you can do other solutions. I know in Palmer's Let's Mod series, he's setting up a specific project for his mod. So you have multiple projects, one for Minecraft and one for his actual mod, and then he can have multiple projects loaded at the same time and so on. That's a possible way of doing it. That's not how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it very simple and just create a package here inside the source folder and go from that. Okay, so inside here I want to create a class. So what should I call this class? Well, this is going to be my mod, and the mod I've decided to be called Steve's Examples, or Steve's Examples, so it might make sense to call it Steve's Example there. Okay, finish that, and here we go. So it's created something for us. It told it in the code, this is the package example, and then we have public class Steve's Example and nothing more. Let's take a closer look. There we go. Okay, what do we need to do? This is not a mod yet. This is just an empty class, not doing anything at all. Okay, so what we need to do is add something called an annotation, and this annotation is going to be a mod annotation. So what we need to do is just doing @mod, and then we need to give it a few different things. First of all, we might want to give it an ID, like that. So that's going to be what we refer to this mod as, but we also might want to have a proper name for it. How do we do that? Well, what we need to do is give it a name. And finally, we don't want to have that there. We want to set the version. Usually when you set a version, you would probably use something like 01.23b, like something like that, like version alpha 2f, something like that. But what I'm going to do is call it lecture 1. You can call the version whatever you want to, and since this is I'm going to continue with this Steve's Example mod throughout the course, then it seems to make sense for me to call it lecture 1, because that's the current version of the mod. So you give it the ID, you give it the name, and you finally give it the version that you want it to have. Okay, it's still giving us a lot of errors, right? It doesn't know what we're doing. We can click down here if we go back to the full view and see that we oh, actually it's not updating. It should say that we have a few errors here, but apparently it don't want to because we haven't saved the file, so it's not checking this file. We can save it like that, and now all of a sudden we will have 4 different errors here. And also if we go and take a look at the package explorer, we will see that we have an error in Steve's Example here, which means that we're going to have an error in the example package, which means that, well, we have an error somewhere in the source package, which means that we have an error somewhere in the Minecraft project. So you can sort of track down where you have errors here. But let's go back to here. And what we want to do is tell it where it can find this mod annotation. And we can import that. I know where to import it. The import statement would be import cpw.mods.fml.common.mod. But that's quite a lot to remember, so what we can do in Eclipse is just tell it to import it for us. How do we do that? Well, we can press on our keyboard Ctrl-Shift-O, and that's going to import everything for us. If we have any imports that we don't need anymore, it's going to remove them. So now all of a sudden we have this import here. It imports cpw.mods.fml.common.mod because I pressed Ctrl-Shift-O, so it realized that's the one you want. So now we have a mod here. We have the ID, we have the name, and finally version. And like I said, I'm going to use the version lecture 1, even though it might make more sense in most scenarios to have a version like 0.0.1, maybe for your very first version, or when you get to a proper release at 1.0, if you have a mod you want to release, that is. But of course this is just very, very empty. So what do we need to add here? Well, first of all, we might want to add our instance. This is just a class, and we might want to have an instance that we can refer to if we want to do anything with the actual mod. And we do so by doing @instance, so that's another annotation, and then we just give it the ID of our mod. This also allows other mods to access our mod using our ID. And the type of this variable here is going to be Steve's example. That's the class, and then I can just call it whatever. I can call it pi, but that seems a bit weird. So well, instance seems to make sense. And I get an error here as well because, well, I don't know what's going on. So let's do Control-Shift-O. It's going to import that for us. So Control-Shift-O automatically imports in Eclipse. Sweet. Right. So what do we want to add next? Now we have the instance of a mod. Well, we might want to load things in a mod, like, alright, the mod starts, we might want to register some tile entities, we might want to add some recipes, we might want to add some sounds and things like that. How do we do that? Because we need to do that, otherwise our mod is just an empty shell, it's not going to do anything. Okay. So what we want to do, and this is new in 1.6 by the way, so if you have modded before, it's going to be a bit different. It's going to be mostly the same, but what we want to do is we want to do add event handler, like that, and then we want to create a method here, public void, and we can name it whatever. We can name it, I don't know, horse armor. We can name it that. That's totally fine. It doesn't make too much sense, though, but we can do it. I'm going to name it pre-init, and what I want to do here is give it a parameter of FML pre-initialization event, like that. Okay. So what this does is we create a event handler, or well, a method for the event handler with this specific event. Let's import that. There we go. So Control-Shift-O automatically imports, like I said. So we give it this event handler annotation, and we make sure that its parameter is of the type FML pre-initialization event, and that means that we have set up a pre-init method. I've called it pre-init, but that's not necessary. You can name it horse armor. Why you would do that, I don't know. And this method here, the code inside it, that's going to be run before the initialization phase. In here, you might want to register sounds, textures, add items and blocks. You need to add these at the beginning, so everyone knows what you're going to use. You need to occupy some IDs and so on. Here, you're also going to create a config. For instance, if you want to read the config, you should do it here right away. So that's the pre-initialization phase. Then we might have the proper initialization phase, and to do so we do the same thing, add event handler, and then we do public void, and the name can be whatever, but then we give it another parameter. So that's going to be FML initialization event, not pre-initialization. And what we can do is just hit Control space, and it's going to give us a few different suggestions here. That's Eclipse. So I can just click on that one, and it's going to add that for me and import it for me. So pretty easy. There you go. So here we want to add everything that we need to set up our own mod. So for instance, we might want to create a lot of handlers that do things for us. We might want to register recipes. We might want to prepare a lot of data that we're going to use, set up a lot of connections between our code. So in load, in the initialization phase, we want to set up everything that we care about for our own mod. While in pre-init, we need to set up things that other mods might care about as well. Well, basically when you load sounds and textures, but also when you occupy IDs, block IDs and things like that, so everything can be reached properly. So just a few different methods here where you do different things, and we have a third one called, well, we do the same here, event handler, public void, and I can name it whatever, I don't know, rainy weather. That's a very weird name, but I'm going to name it mods loaded, and that's the post phase, post initialization phase, and well, there you go. just control space and it's going to do it for me. So last time it gave me a list of the different suggestions, but in this case we did only have one possible. If I wrote FML post, we only had one possible solution what it could be, and therefore it typed it for us like that. There you go. So here we can put things that we want to do afterwards if we want to interact with some other mods that we want them to load first so we can access them, but then we might want to do something in the end there. So we have three different phases here. We have before the initialization, during it, and afterwards. And I've named them pre-init, load, and mods loaded, but well, you can name it whatever. And as you can see here, we have pre-init, we have init, and post-init. So that's actually what they are. There you go. That's a very basic mod. It doesn't do anything, of course. There you go. But what we might want to do next is make sure that this is a multiplayer mod. It's a network mod, as it's called. And to do so, we need to add another annotation. So as you can see now, we're setting up this basic mod skeleton, and then we will add content later on. So what we might want to do is add network mod. So this is going to well, control the multiplayer aspect of it. Of course, we need to add code to specifically do things multiplayer, but this is what we need to tell it. It's a network mod. First of all, we need to, or well, we should give it a channel, and this is basically a channel to for your mod to speak upon. So if you want your client and server versions to speak to each other, you want to give them sort of their channel. So think about it like if you want to call someone, you know that if I call this number, then the other one can answer if it's not busy or well want to ignore you. But you can call it with that number, and it's the same thing. We want to give our mod a number to sort of dial itself with. And I'm just going to use example here. If multiple mods uses the same channel, you might have a problem, because they are going to sort of get each other's calls. It's like if two people have the same number, when you're calling them, which one would you reach? So don't have like just a very simple one. So the one I have now is a bit bad example. That's probably not the best name to have, but you don't want them too long either, because you need to send along the channel as well to when you're sending any information. So keep it short, but keep it unique. So it might be a problem to do both, but try to find a balance there. So that's the first thing. You need to give it a channel to talk with. Oh, well, talk with, I guess. Then we need to specify a few different things. Client side required. So if we have a server that you have this mod installed on, who can join it? Can you join it without the client, or do you need to have it installed as well? So basically, if you have a server with your own mod on, so you have installed it on the server, and you have this friend, and the friend wants to join and play with you, do this friend need this mod installed to be able to join? Usually that's what you want. So if you have a block that the server knows about, then it's good that the client knows about it as well, so it can render a block, interact with it properly. So usually you want to set that any client that joins this server needs the mod as well. It's however not necessary, otherwise you can just set it to false, but usually you want to go it true. And then we have the opposite, server side required. So this means that, well, if your friend has this server with a few different mods, and you want to join it, but you have your own mod installed, but he do not have it on his server, do you need to uninstall your mod first to join a server? And if we set that to false, that means that you have this mod on your client, but it's not required to have it on the server as well. So you can join a server without a mod as well. So that's that one. Usually you want to set it to false, but depending on the mod, you might set these to something else. Okay, So the last part would be to give it a packet handler. So we have told it like where we have these things, what sites are required. We have told it where we want this to speak, basically. So the channel it should speak with. Will speak on. Then we want to tell it who will actually answer all the calls. So for that we want a packet handler like this. Okay, so I just imported network mod, so that would work. But we have this packet handler here, and we don't know at all what that is. So this is something that we need to create that is going to answer the calls for us, you can say. So if we send a packet from the client to the server, maybe someone did something on the client side, and we want to inform the server this just happened. Then we need the packet handler to retrieve that call and then do something with it. So let's create a packet handler. So first of all, I'm going to create a sub package to example called network. That seems like a good idea, right? If we have something that we use to communicate with the client and the server, it might be a good idea to call it network. And inside the network, I want to create a new class called packet handler, like that. Okay, so what do we want to do with this? Well, not too much actually, but what we want to do is to implement the interface for packet handlers. So of course we don't have to call it a packet handler here, it's just a name that makes sense. We don't know what that is, so let's import it. Control-Shift-O, there you go. And now it tells us, well, you have this packet handler, but you're not overriding, the methods and stuff. So Eclipse can do this for us. I can just click Add Unimplemented Methods. Boom. Oh, that's a lot of stuff. So now we have this method here that we can also find inside packet handler, and what it will do is give us information if we send any packet on this specific channel. So then we will get the network manager that is handling that. We'll get the packet that is sent that will contain data, but we will also see who sent this packet. And then we can define it like that. There you go. That's our network mod. Of course, we need to do things when we receive a packet, and also not everything has to be sorted with the packet handler. The packet handler is just used if we want to send any custom data. So, for instance, if we want to set up something specific with if you click on this specific key on your keyboard, then we might want to send that to the server, so the server can react to that the player clicked on a keyboard, the keyboard key. But if you just want to move forward and backwards and use your item and things like that, then the already built-in code to handle that will handle that for you. So you don't have to tell the packet handler, oh right, this user just ate this weird pizza that I have added in my mod, for instance. You don't need to do that, but if you want to add specific things, then we need a packet handler. So that's why I wanted to introduce it there. We're going to use it later on in the course, but not in this lecture. So there you go. Now we have a mod and a network mod, so it's the same thing there. We have both its annotations here for the Steve's example class. The next thing I want to go through now before the break is something called proxies. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, we go in here and we want to add something called an annotation here, cited proxy, like so. Okay, a capital S there. So we want to define two different proxies here, one client side and one server side. And I need to tell it where it is. I'm going to tell it, well, we have it in example.proxies .client proxy. Of course that doesn't exist, but I'm going to create it in just a bit. And then we have this server side as well. Server side equals example.proxies.common proxy. Okay. And then I need to create the actual variable. This is just the annotation that tells us what it can be used for. how the mod itself is going to interact with it. Public static common proxy. So this is something else that we will be using, and I can just import as much as possible. So I just hit Control Shift O, and here we go, cited proxies there. And it's, of course, it won't recognize common proxy because that doesn't exist. And we can see the error if we go to the other view here. We can see that there's an error down here. We can see the error here, and we can also see the error in the Package Explorer. So let's create that. So I'm just going to create a new package here. So that's going to be an example as well. And we're going to call it proxies. So here I want to place my proxies. Create a new class. And what do we want this to be called? Well, we want a common proxy, right? Finish. There you go. Very simple. And then we want the client proxy as well. Client proxy. What we can do here if we want to is tell it its subclass. So the client proxy is going to be a subclass to common proxy. Okay, so if I do where is it, example dot proxies dot common proxy, like that. So if I do that and hit finish, it's just going to add some things for us. So we will get public class client proxy extends common proxy. So what is all of this bullshit? We'll see in a bit. Okay, so now we have a proxy. We have one on the client side and one on the server side. We define it like the client side version should be this one here, and we can take a closer look. There you go. And the server side version should be this one here, the common proxy, and that is going to be stored in the proxy here. So what do we use this for? Well, what if we want to do some things on the client side and something on the server side? Like we might want to register textures, like a renderer, something that we want to render, something specific that we want to render. We might want to register sounds. We can't do that on the server side, or we shouldn't do that at least. There's no reason to play a sound on the server. Who can hear that? We want to play it on the client side, and that's exactly where we want to initialize it, to create a sound so we can play them. So how do we do this with these proxies? Well, what we can do is tell the proxy, well, I want to initialize some sounds. I want to initialize some renderers, like that. Okay, fine. So I'll tell the proxy, do these things, please. Of course, that doesn't exist. We have to create it inside our proxies. So I can tell Eclipse here, can you create this for me? Because it detects that there's nothing called init sound, so let's create that. And then we can do the same thing for the other one. Okay. So far there's actually nothing special here. I'm actually going to leave these methods empty, but the magic comes in play when I add them here as well. And of course I want to tell it to override these, just to make it properly. And here I want to init the rendering stuff, and here I want to init all these sounds. Somehow I might call another class to do it for me, but I want to do it here and here. So what this does is when we load a mod here in pre-init, and we want to set up the sounds and the renderers, we tell the proxy to initialize the sound. We tell it to initialize the renderers. And what this does is that it's going to tell the current proxy to call that method. But since we have set it up like this, using something called the cited proxy annotation, we're going to get on the client side, when we run this mod on the client side, we're going to get the client proxy. When we run it on the server side, however, we're going to get the common proxy. In both these cases, we can store it in the common proxy variable, just because client proxy extends common proxy. So when we do proxy.init sounds, if we are on the server side, we will call the method init sounds and init renderers, which will not include anything at all, because when we want to init the sounds, if we are on the server side, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to initialize any sounds, we don't want to initialize any renderers, and so on. However, if we are on the client side, when we call these things, since what we actually have is a client proxy, which of course extends common proxy, we will call the methods inside here, and we will add the code here to initialize the sounds and initialize the renderers. So when we are in our mod file itself, we don't really know if we are on the client or the server side, just in pre-init here, but we tell the proxy to do the work, and since we have decided proxy, so we have two different proxies on the client and the server side, we can make sure that we register the sounds on the client side and we register the renderers on the client side, but we don't do it on the server side. So we're going to use this later on. The sound stuff is not until the last lecture in this course, but I prepared this here so we can use it. We're going to use this init renders though. So we have, at the moment, we have a mod with the ID and the name, and we also have the version. We have a network mod, and we tell it a bit how it's going to work on the network. We give it some properties there, the channel to talk on, the packet handler to receive packets, and then which sides are required. We have the instance here, we have the two proxies, so we can initialize sounds and renderers there, and then we have three different methods here that will load our code depending on what we want to do. So let's see how that looks like, shall we? Run the client like this. So now we have not only MCP and FML and Forge, but we should also have our own mod, Steve's example, in the mod list. So here we go, 4 mods loaded, nice. Click mods, and here we go, Steve's example, version lecture 1, mod states available, no mod information found, ask your mod author to provide a mod mc.info file. There we go, move it up a bit. Okay. So what does this mean? Well, it means that we haven't provided it with an information file, which we can do, and which I will actually show how to do in the second part of this lecture. In the second part of this lecture, I will also talk a bit about how you export your mod so you can run it in the Minecraft launcher and give it to your friends and so on, and also how to set up a config file and a few other things. But that's going to be after the break. Now we have set up this basic skeleton mod that doesn't do anything, but we'll continue in about 15 minutes, so I'll see you then.